Hey there, I'm Pete Townsend, and this is Money Never Sleeps. We look inside the minds of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. This episode of Money Never Sleeps is sponsored by Pat FinTech, the training partner that demystifies fintech and digital finance for financial services professionals. On the show this week, we've got Oli Cavanagh.
Hi, I'm Oli Cavanagh, and I'm co-founder and CEO of Strike.
And Charles Dowd.
Hi, I'm Charles Dowd. I'm co-founder and chief product officer at Strike.
Sharing their story on Strike, which is portable personal payment tech designed to make tipping, giving, and paying convenient, safe, and easy for all. In this chat, we get into the confluence of experiences and ideas that brought Oli and Charles together to launch Strike, getting a product live and raising an angel round in less than 3 months, the benefit of having done it before when you need to build a team swiftly, and the big road ahead for Strike. All right here on Money Never Sleeps.
Money never sleeps, pal.
Well, rolling right into it, Oli, you fly any helicopters lately?
No, not in a while. My license wouldn't be current, but I do have a private pilot's license for helicopters, which I got in San Diego in California when I was over there working for a startup that I co-founded.
Did you know that was still in your LinkedIn profile?
No, I was wondering, how on earth did you know that?
It's all there, dude. It's all there.
How did that come about, even?
Well, I was living in London and I was getting the tube home one night after a few drinks and office party, and it wasn't that late, but I was reading Private Eye magazine, and there was an ad for, quite simply just said learn to fly a helicopter, and I always wanted to fly a helicopter since I was kind of like 6-7 years old, and I just thought, hey, I can actually probably do this now. And I actually called the number and someone answered. This is probably maybe 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And this lady said, yeah, we'd love to have you come along at Saturday at 10 a.m. And I went to Denham Airfield, which is just inside the N25. And I started learning with this guy called Q Smith, who at the time was the world helicopter aerobatics champion. And he took me up in a helicopter and tried to freak me out and did crazy stuff, like, loop, spiral rolls, stuff that you're not even technically supposed to be able to do in Robinson helicopters. And tried to frighten me. And when we landed, he said, did you like that? I said, I loved it. And he said, okay, you should do this. And so that's how I started that, and ended up getting the private license. I planned going commercial at one point, but I then went down a different track, which is, no, I'm going to try and make some money and then just fly for fun.
Yeah, wow. I think we should end the podcast right there, dude. You can't get any better than barrel rolling in a helicopter, right?
Yeah.
Well, listen, Oli and Charles, great to have you guys here, co-founders of Strike. You guys are doing quite well in Ireland, making lots of noise, and obviously want to see that noise continue to grow. Oli as CEO, Charles as Chief Product Officer, but I got to imagine you guys were just kind of like, all right, who's going to take what role with the two of you guys coming together on this as co-founders, right? And play to your strengths, but let's get into that, okay? So what I'd like you guys to do is both of you just take your turns and share your backstories with us and how you got to this point of deciding to do this. Oli, with your background, with your computer science degrees, ventures in encryption, and SaaS and mobile, sales leadership roles, and then Flender, and then now Strike, right? And then Charles, with your mathematics degrees, I'm going to say the whole word so I don't have to try to say it the Irish way, which I still can't do. It may seem easy, but I'm not even going to try to say it. Your 10 formative years, as I saw, in software development, R&D, and product development, 4 ventures as an advisor or co-founder / executive, Facebook in the middle of the mobile boom, which must have been fantastic to be there at that point, then Plink, then Clever Cards as on a contract, and now Strike. Now, obviously, I just kind of fast forwarded through that for both of you guys, but maybe just kind of hit on some of the high points as you're going through your own stories, and then we'll tease those out a bit more, yeah? Oli, do we want to start with you?
Okay. Yeah, so this is the 9th tech startup I've been with, 6 of which I co-founded. The others were they're kind of early stage. Some really nice success stories. Changing Worlds, which was a mobile personalization company. Brightbill, which was a personalized billing company. Irish success stories. And then some of the ones I co-founded myself were in mobile applications, mobile technology space, and then leading to the last 2 have been fintech. So I'm only kind of recent to fintech in the last, I guess, 5 years or so. And that's how I came across Charles in the fintech circles, him being a bit of a star of the payments tech industry. Of course, you would meet him at events and things. So we knew each other, I think, for, at least 4, maybe 5 years before we decided to kind of hook up because we found a massive problem that had an opportunity just waiting to be done properly. And we figured we could do it together. and that was Strike.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm kind of reading a little bit more into the story already, but Charles, why don't you connect us to the story that Oli just shared? Yeah.
Yeah. So in my career, when you look at it, on LinkedIn, it has lots of different things that I've done, but actually what you'll find the common thread is I'm always searching for the next new thing. Yeah. I'm really interested in solving the unsolved problems that are right in front of us. That's my sweet spot of what's next. Yeah. I spent the first 6 years of my professional career writing code for IBM, which was really, really interesting. IBM had 500,000 employees, and it was a machine, but it learned a lot about, large organization structures and what I wanted and what I didn't want. At IBM, everything was little micro contributions. So my contribution was I wrote 1 page of the CUA 91 interface design guidelines, which I'm very proud of at the tender age of 21. And I got my first taste of startups in 94, which is when I joined a CRM startup, which was the first time actually that CRM was ever built. And that was really, really interesting. And ever since, it's been startups all the way, except for one little hiccup in the middle where I couldn't avoid the greatest startup of all time, which was Facebook, which was joining Facebook 2010. What a rocket ship. Did it's like 3 MBAs, 6 engineering degrees, and lots of fun, and 2 countries as well. So I worked in Ireland and the US for Facebook. So it was pretty cool. So the reason why Oli and I are connected together is this is a really cool problem, right? And I have a particular set of skills which can get us out the door pretty quickly. So I'm able to take ideas, problems, and build them into really simple products and get them out the door to get them tested with customers really, really quickly. And then we build teams once we cookie cut. That's why we're working together.
That last point is really interesting because, I told you how many startups I've been involved with, but this one is really different to any of them. None of them have ever moved this quickly. And it's because of what Charles just said. We had the idea, and within 24 hours, he was building the product. And we had an MVP very, very quickly. We were revenue generating within 3 months, actually, which, you both of you, Owen and Pete, you'll know is very unusual.
That's unheard of.
Impressive.
Yeah.
And not just revenue generating, Oli, right? So we actually, the only reason why we had to wait 3 months to be revenue generating was because we knew we had something really new and we wanted to protect it. So we actually spent the first 3 months in stealth protecting the technology that we knew we'd need to protect to actually enter the market. So otherwise we might have gone a little earlier, in fact, to revenue generation.
Actually, Pete, as well, we decided we wanted global protection. So rather than doing the usual kind of filing here, we just went straight to the US. So because that not only does it give global protection, but it's also privacy. It's sealed, for a period. So we wanted to use that time to really get traction and get a march out there before anyone would really kind of know what we were up to. And in that vein as well, we haven't done any PR or anything. Now, there's actually been things in the news about us recently, but that's our clients actually who are doing press. We haven't done anything. We've done no marketing, no PR. We're still trying to just get traction quietly under the radar.
Yeah.
Where did the idea come from? Like, I know obviously you guys know each other a good while, but where did the concept for it? How did that conversation even come up?
From my side, 1 year and 3 weeks ago, when proper lockdown happened, I just stopped carrying cash. I actually kind of didn't like carrying cash. I almost kind of moved that way anyway, but I literally stopped overnight, bang, no cash. Even stopped carrying my cards, no debit cards, credit cards. I didn't even stop carrying my driver's license actually, and just went about with my phone and everything. I Apple Pay, everything's set up on my phone, and I just thought this is brilliant. The world finally has kind of caught up on Sweden, I think, which is the only country was really kind of there or thereabouts with the cashless. So we were probably at least 10 to 12 years away from research to the cashless society. And I thought this was great initially, but really, really quickly, within another week, I'd say after that, I realized actually there's been a bunch of occasions where I wanted to give someone money and I couldn't. And I thought that's kind of interesting. Like how many people have gone totally cashless like me? And I kind of looked around and asked around and talked to, like everyone had gone cashless. And then I started talking to people who worked in industry. So I spoke to the delivery driver at lunchtime. Do you get tips in here? No, not at all. The Just Eat driver on a Friday night that we would normally get, I'm really sorry, I can't tip you, and, like, hey, it's okay. No one's tipping there. And there were loads of occasions like this. And I kind of sat down and listed a whole bunch of them. And But there was also a bar that was known to deliver pints to your home or to wherever you were. And it was the same thing there, and they were really working. These are people who are kind of working hard for a reward, which everyone was giving them up until, just over a year ago. And that reward went to zero. So it became a huge problem for actually three parties, as we discovered. One is, all us, because we actually want to reward people and thank people and tip people. So it's actually a problem for us because we feel embarrassed. And then the second thing, of course, it's we're helping the people who relied on that portion of their income. But thirdly, we're really helping business owners because their employees' income and morale have plummeted during COVID. And there was very little they could do about it without digging deeper into their pocket, maybe, and actually increasing salaries. So it was a huge pain point for a lot of business owners. So we fixed all three of these things now with Strike, actually.
And tell us about the product. Tell us, what is Strike?
So if we go back to kind of some of those examples I was giving, so I was thinking in my head, there's got to be some way, something that these guys can carry that can maybe trigger a payment that's secure as your average payment terminal or card machine that you would see in any shop or store. We reckon probably there's 60 million people affected by this, just in English-speaking countries alone. Those 60 million people aren't going to go out and buy card machines and walk around with clunky card machines plugged in that are expensive. But I thought there's got to be something that we can use to trigger a payment that's just as secure in the one device that everyone already has on them, which is their phone, which actually has internet connection. It has lots of security built into it. It's got Apple Pay, it's got Google Pay, it's got Face ID, it's got Touch ID, it's got lots of security. In fact, it's more secure than using a credit card or a debit card. But no one had really kind of made it simple enough and low cost enough that it could be something that could trigger that event, like a little piece of hardware could be produced by the tens of millions for all those people I'm talking about. So I thought, could we use, some kind of RFID, NFC technology? And that's when I actually reached out to Charles. So I thought, who's the leading payments tech expert, that I know anyway, maybe in Ireland, but maybe not, but certainly in my circles. And so I asked him, is there something that could be done that actually we could ship out to 60 million people and all of a sudden anyone can just tap them and give them that secure payment? And we found a way. And not only to find a way, we found something that was, Charles said, I think this is actually patentable. So let's keep it under the radars. Let's build it. I'm going to quit my job and join you. And that's what we did. We quit our jobs. Within 3 months, we're revenue generating.
All right. Now, Charles, I can see on Oli's background, encryption, mobile, obviously those are some key components. You've got your payments tech background. Were you already thinking about this before Oli reached out to you? Was there something kind of in the background that might have been on the shelf waiting for a moment? Or was this kind of, hey, I'm just going to figure this out?
The reality is, I've always been fascinated by the performance of cash. I actually think that cash is a really interesting product, and that digital solutions have never quite matched what cash can do. Cash is really interesting. It's when you engage with someone, you hand them a $10 bill or a €5 note. It's a person-to-person transaction. It's instant transfer of 100% of the value, and it's irreversible. And it's quite interesting because actually that's really difficult to do on digital platforms. And I've tried a number of times with a number of startups to actually really try and fix that problem. And so this has always been an underlying effort, I guess, in a number of things that I've done in my past. And to be honest, the technology hasn't really moved where it needs to be until very, very recently. Yeah. So now we have ubiquity of mobile phones. NFC is available in almost all of them. QR codes are ubiquitous, especially in Asia. So now we've got this culmination of sort of a technology on the doorstep when the pizza arrives that actually matches the problem that we're trying to solve. So was there something on the shelf ready to go? No, but this is, like, for me, it's been a fascination since about 2004 when I was building a remittance solution from New Jersey to Haiti for a microfinance organization called Funcoze. And that no mobile phones, no proper internet. The idea that you could actually move money through continents was just, bizarre, right? And now here we are with a super cool, simple solution that allows two people who don't know each other to meet for the first time and have a really simple digital exchange that replicates that cash exchange of instant, irreversible, and 100% of the value. That's actually really cool, right?
Yeah. I'm kind of thinking, Charles, you're kind of like the Mark Cuban with broadcast.com, right? In 1995, 96, whatever. It was the idea for Netflix 10 years too early, right? And he wanted to solve that problem, and he tried to solve the problem with dial-up internet. And it built some pretty cool tech, but it really wasn't going to be able to perform because not everybody had the technology at their disposal to make use of it. Only a few people did, right? And then he sold it to Yahoo or something like that for a mint, made some good money off of it, and then, went and bought the Dallas Mavericks or whatever. But, if that kind of impetus was there the whole time to do it, and then it just took the rest of the world to catch up to you, right? That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. And in some ways, the pandemic has accelerated this need. It's actually accelerated the density of the need, let's say.
Yeah.
And I think what it's done, though, is it's actually a tipping point. This is not a pandemic product. This is actually just happens that it's a perfect combination of events that actually was ready to happen. And now everyone has embraced, right? So that happens sometimes. Something happens. And, we always think about change happens in this sort of smooth curve. It doesn't. It tends to happen in these step changes. It's like it steps on the stairs. What was, a novelty yesterday is a necessity today. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's the kind of product we've built. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The first wave of launch customers we had were delivery drivers. And so we started off with like a bunch of food delivery places, and we're rolling out now to about 700 delivery drivers. But the first wave, the first night they used it, they were coming back into the restaurant or into the takeaway, coming back in. And each time they were coming back, it was like the first time they got a chance to check their phone, and they would be saying, "Wow, there's money there. Like I just made €10 from those last two deliveries." And then they're coming back in and they're kind of looking at their phone, and it was amazing, how quickly that happened. And then we were on board at another place last week, and the time from him actually being on board to his first tip was less than 5 minutes, because he came in, he got a strike bag, he went out in his way. Charles was actually there because we were kind of just observing as well. We don't need to be there; people can do it themselves. But he was on board. He was gone. And his first delivery actually tipped him like €5, and that was within 5 minutes of him having the product. It's mind-boggling to see. Then the stickiness, of course, is you can understand the stickiness of that.
And sort of product market fit is all about time to value, right? So it's like I try the product, I get the return, I get the dopamine, I get it, I go back, and they call it the magic account. the delivery guys, because it's like, wow, I just go out, I deliver things, and we discovered really interesting things, like really surprising things. Like we thought, oh yeah, it'd be like it's on the doorstep, that's when it would happen. But on the doorstep is where the idea is introduced. But actually, we're finding that there's sort of a tip now situation, but the tip later is actually really interesting. So we've developed a solution that allows them to also receive a tip later. And it happens after they've actually eaten, or even what actually happens a lot is the next morning, someone's getting up and they're actually going, oh, I really enjoyed that. I'm going to go tip that guy who brought that food to me last night. Okay. And that's really, still was so surprising to us to actually see this product appear from customer usage. It's pretty, absolutely. That's such a wonderful feeling when it happens, right? You see your product being used in completely unusual ways, unexpected ways, I guess.
Do you have that little flux capacitor that goes up like they do in Curve when you go back in time?
Of course.
Do you guys know what I'm talking about with the product Curve?
No.
Yeah, it's kind of an umbrella card that sits on top of all your other cards, and they've got this feature that if you you use your Curve card, either through Apple Pay
Curve,
or whatever. Yeah. And then you direct it to your N26. No, actually, I meant to use my Revolut for that. Right? You can go back in time and switch it from your N26 charge to your Revolut, debiting your Revolut card. And when you do that step on the Curve app on your phone, this little flux capacitor from Back to the Future pops up on your phone, and it's showing you going back in time. Right.
Okay. I love the Curve product. It's
awesome.
It's very cool. It's essentially, removing your wallet and turning it into one card. What we found that people aren't even carrying one card anymore. Like they're carrying none. They just carry their phone with them. That's the only thing they always have. Even when they come to the door to pick the pizza, they still have the phone in their hand. It's quite fascinating.
This episode of Money Never Sleeps is sponsored by Pat FinTech, demystifying fintech and digital finance for financial services professionals. Pat FinTech enable financial services professionals to transform their capabilities into the digital age with dedicated virtual training programs geared towards those that can develop, deliver, and monitor optimally customized user experiences balanced by appropriate governance, control, and oversight. To learn more about Pat FinTech, go to moneyneversleeps.ie/PAT FinTech.
Presumably then, and I'm thinking because I may have used this example at some point in time in the last few months, but it makes me think of Square and their initial rollout and the adoption of that and what that did for small to medium businesses, how transformative that was. Is that kind of where you see it? You know, especially Oli, you compared it to a payment terminal. You know, people aren't going to plug in a payment terminal and drive around with it. But I suppose you've effectively created a payment terminal on the phone then.
Well, actually, what we're doing now is kind of interesting. We're turning any surface into a payment terminal. And so we're actually rolling out, and probably by the end of the summer, we'll have close to 8,000 payment terminals in Ireland. And a lot of those are things that you wouldn't expect. They're protective screens in shops, protective screens in taxis, wearable devices, fundraising boxes for charities, like all sorts of things. Like literally, we can turn anything, we can retrofit anything into a secure payment terminal. And so that's really interesting. And that's not something that the likes of, Square, as you mentioned, is doing. But they did start off quite simple, and I think they've become a bit more complex. And companies like them aren't really addressing this market that we're in.
When they brought out their first dongle, it was transformative for those businesses that wouldn't have had the payment terminal. All of a sudden, they had this simple solution that transformed how they were able to accept payments. It seems like you're onto the same kind of thing, if you know what I mean, in terms of that transformative piece.
It's like, you have to, in my mind, I always like visualize transformation or innovation as like a rubber band, right? You pull it and then eventually it snaps, right? And then that's actually when the change happens, right? It's like, oh yeah, we stretch a piece of technology as far as we go and then it snaps, right? And what happened with Square in the beginning was fantastic, right? It was like, oh, let's just plug this little tiny dongle into the headphone jack on my phone. Don't have those anymore, right? And you can then swipe the card through the phone jack. That's because the content of the mag stripe is actually just some text that's typed into the phone. When you swipe your card at the point of sale, it's actually, that's a keyboard interface. It's literally typing the numbers off the mag stripe. So that's just a hack, right? But what it did was it allowed Square to move really quickly, super simple dongle, off you go. But actually payments, as they become super mobile, have actually become more and more and more complex to actually execute. And what happened was all that functionality was being put into this dumb piece of plastic, which they then had to try and make smart. But there was a change that happened a few years ago, right, with the adoption of Apple Pay and Google Pay, where the device that was being used to pay, the payment instrument, was now super smart, but all the payment infrastructure wasn't changed to match the smartness of the tender type. Yeah. So that meant you now had this super complex system where you actually need two mobile phones and a connected device to actually make a transaction if you're a small merchant. That's like what, $3,000 worth of equipment just to make one payment transaction. And so what we've done is essentially broken that rubber band, right? That to say, actually, let's bring it back to where it's really simple again. And now all the smarts is actually in the phone that essentially is tapping a super dumb terminal. And it sort of turned everything backwards. But actually, that's the innovation that's let us actually create this terminal from anywhere. People, places, objects can turn into payment terminals. Yeah. So it's pretty interesting.
It is. And the fact that you've got patent pending here is, is a pretty big deal, right? But thinking about the market, right? And thinking about, yes, Oli, like you said, 60 million people out there who have some sort of dependency on the ability to be tipped. Right. But you're thinking about, well, what's the total amount, right? On an annual basis, what does that amount to in dollar terms? Right. And then how are you guys going to make money off of that? Right. And obviously anything in the payment space generally tends to be done as a transaction fee. But how are you guys doing this? How did you think about the market and size the market and then come up with the business model so that you guys can make money off this?
Yeah. So we did research and kind of sized that market just in the English-speaking countries and the kind of high-tipping cultures initially, just to get some kind of idea of what the target market was. And that number that you just said correlates with just over $40 billion annually in top line volume of tips. And there's three ways that we can make money from that, and we kind of mix and match depending on the environment. But we have what we call strike tags. They can be smart stickers, they can be smart wearables, they can smart whatever with the tech inside it, and we sell those up front. We also have a model where it's a rental model where for a low monthly fee you have the product. And then of course we have a transactional fee as well, as you said, which obviously fairly standard. So we on the transactional side, we've had some really interesting stats actually. We made the fees optional. So the person tipping or giving, in the case with some of our charity customers, and we're working with the 3 largest charities in the country. And so we made that transactional fee optional. And if it's a tipping environment, over 90% of people will just accept the tips, because if they're giving, $5 or $10 to the person, they want them to get the full amount in over 90% of the occasions. Where it's a charity they're giving to, it's over 98% are accepting the fees. So it becomes almost free to the recipient in that sense.
Okay, I'm with you. And when you guys pulled together a nice €625,000 pre-seed round, and at that stage with the folks that you were raising that from, and I know Enterprise Ireland were part of that bag, right? That, talking about the market and the size of the market, how important was that to your investors in thinking about, wow, this could actually take off?
I'm going to say, professional investors, when they look at something like this, they have to know that there's a large enough addressable market from a revenue point of view to generate at least $1 billion revenue business. We operate like a B2B SaaS company. So it's very partner driven, go to market's very cheap for us, but we look like a B2C company, right? So we actually have the ability to have sort of winner takes all B2C type outcome. So we think that, that the winner in this market will take about 30% of the market. And for us, that, that's just in the English speaking markets we're looking at, that's, a multi-billion-dollar market. Yeah. And that's just for tipping. That's not counting the fact that there's a direct crossover into small merchant payments, micropayments, which not many people have been able to solve at scale economically. And we're already proving that we can do that. So I think that those two things together, make this a really attractive business for investors. So when we look at the initial angel round that we just did, what they're really looking at is, who are the founders? Do they have ambition? Do they have the right ability to execute? And that's what they're looking at. Yeah. And they say, is there a big market here? Probably. But, do we need to do a giant TAM analysis or something to do that? No. Right. It's like, are you the right guys to do this? And are you getting some traction? Yes, you are. Great. We'd like to back you and make sure that it really can be successful. And that's what this is about, giving yourself the runway to make the mistakes, to build a product so you can be successful.
And in more than one occasion, actually, people that we'd approached for partnership or strategically, not even looking for money, because Charles and I were self-funding ourselves at that stage. So, but a couple of the people that we'd approached because they were a potential route to market or a channel for us, turned it around at us and said, is there an opportunity to invest? And because they saw that this is kind of a no-brainer, and they're now investors in the company.
Cool. Yeah, it's a good way to do it. And I think it's a good point that you mentioned just there, Charles, is that when it is early stage like you guys are, that the types of investors that you're bringing in aren't the ones that need you guys to return a $4 billion fund for them, right? So they're not looking for like you said, TAM the hell out of this thing for me, please, right? They're not looking for that. So that's a really good point. You guys must be already pretty deep into thinking about your next round, which I know, or at least the press reported, you guys were talking about raising over $6 million for the next round. Have you guys kicked that off yet?
Yes. So we've started on that, and that was leaked early, by the way, but still it actually worked out beneficial because we actually had an influx of people interested. We already had 6 names left over from the first round, from the angel round, who didn't make it in. So them, along with a number of institutional parties now that we're talking to, we have identified what we're going to do is a 2-step. So of the 6.5, we're doing 1.5 now, and towards our Series A. So it's looking good. Yeah, and we're moving on that quite quickly. We hope to close that, before Q4 this year.
Okay.
In the vein of always wanting to do new, fun, innovative things, so we're raising against a SAFE, which is a simple agreement for future equity, which is a really nice structure developed by Y Combinator. There are very few of them done this side of the pond, and we think that it really gives investors a really simple way to get in. It gives us the ability to essentially roll close towards our Series A, but with enough cash to actually maximize the valuation when the Series A happens.
Absolutely. But it's a big amount to go for, but it's not in the grand scheme of things with the amount of capital that's available out there right now in the world, right? And just the printing money that's going on. And that printing money is not actually printing cash money, right? Obviously, as you guys have stumbled upon. Thinking about going live with your first customer, Camille Tai, you already mentioned, Charles, that getting some of that early user feedback, that as soon as we kind of give you the device or give you the sticker or give you the ability to accept a tip, seeing that immediate, boom, there goes $5 into my account. Any user feedback that came through in the early days that said, well, we got to change this right away. This won't work. Did anything like that come up?
So one of the things that we did was take ourselves out of that loop. So we actually employed a independent third party to run independent trials that I will admit that Oli and I did try to put in influence in the process because we thought we wanted to influence the outcome. But they pushed back on us. And so we had no influence over the actual trial itself, except to deliver the best product we could into that actual trial. And it ran over a 4-week period, 2 staggered weekends with interviews of business owners, the recipients, and the tippers themselves with video recordings and transcripts and narratives. And we collected, just huge amounts of actual data because it's, your first interaction with customers is not something to be squandered. It's a really, really, really important, valuable step. And so we went through that process. And the outcome was product market fit. It was actually really surprising that literally we came out of the gate, we built a product that made the delivery drivers feel that they were listened to. This was the first time they had a product that was built just for them. Everything else in their world is built for somebody else. This is the only thing that was built just for them to solve a real problem that they had. And the end customer felt that we had built a product just for them, because they wanted a way to show appreciation to these people who are like working really hard in the middle of this pandemic and delivering their food, and they didn't have a way to reward them, and now they did. And like some of the videos are like they're actually emotional. You actually feel, wow, here's someone they just feel that this is fantastic and great. And then as they come out of the gate, you're finding that as we bring on new locations, that there's pent up demand for tipping. And so someone will bring a delivery to a place where they've come a number of times and they'll give them a €10 tip the first time because they missed them the last few times because they didn't have any cash. And so we're solving quite emotional problems, relationship problems, I think that makes this even more rewarding. So we actually were really surprised to find product market fit out of the gate. But to answer your original question, were there things that we did that we had to remove? Yes. For instance, one thing we were doing was collecting a message during the tip process, which, sounds like a really great idea, but sometimes people would type the amount in there and some people, weren't really sure what to do with it, or they would push the pay button down. But yeah, we responded pretty quickly to, the instant feedback and made it happen.
Nothing like getting product into customers' hands really quickly. That does it.
Yeah. And don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of putting it in the customer's hands because, you'd be surprised. They know what they want. Yeah. And they make your product better.
Yeah. And we tried lots of different form factors. We're still trying lots of different ones, because what we're doing is so new. No one's really done it before. We're not entirely sure what would work, what wouldn't. I mean, rewind a year ago. Actually, just over a year ago, at the end of the first lockdown, my wife and I decided we got to get out of town. So we went down to the west of Ireland to the Dunraven Arms Hotel, which is a nice hotel down the west. We're allowed to travel outside our county finally. And we were staying in this, it's a lovely hotel, 2 stories, no lift, right? No elevator. And so we had bags, us and our kids. And the guy, the bellhop carried our bags up to the 2nd floor. And we couldn't tip the guy. And then it was the same thing when we were checking out. I was like, well, I still didn't have no opportunity to get cash. Couldn't tip the guy. So I said to him, if, because he was wearing like a little lapel pin, a badge, you often see in the uniforms that people wear. I said, if that was actually tappable, if someone could like tap it and give you, 2, 3 or 5 euro or something, would you wear it? And he said, absolutely. And so and I thought maybe that's a form factor. And then I spoke to Charles, and we thought maybe wristbands, maybe people wear wristbands that, people can tap, or maybe they would just leave a card. Maybe housekeeping actually would just leave a card with a QR code that they could scan. In the case of the delivery drivers, the research project Charles was talking about, we had key fobs, like little keychains things. We had ID cards that were kind of on extenders that they could reach out. But what we also did, actually, what was quite successful in that, was we printed oversized QR codes on those cards so that they could be scanned from 2 meters away, socially distanced. So the delivery driver's dropping off the food, the person can, be quite far away and still scan it and tip them. So we tried lots of different things. We're continuing to try lots and lots of different things, and obviously keeping the ones that work and throwing out the ones that didn't.
That's pretty good. Yeah, big experiment in A/B testing. Absolutely. Tell me, thinking about growing this, right? I saw in one of the articles that demand for, 50 million tags that you probably could ship. There is the demand there, right? And balancing that with the early stage love and attention that you need to give to your first partners, right, that are getting this into users' hands. How do you balance those two, those demands of, wow, this thing, we're getting so much interest in this, but we have to do this at the right pace. We have to give this love to our first customers. We're still a small business, operating with just a few people. How do you do that?
Patient urgency.
Elaborate, please.
Yeah. It ends up being like products take a little bit of time to go through a couple of loops so that you actually understand what the outcome is and what you should actually be delivering. So in the same way as, loads of people have gone too early into markets and found that they were too early with technology or whatever, and, have invested too early and failed. What we're trying to do is really find a small number of engagements that we can replicate and make sure that they work. Yeah. And we've done that over the last 6 months. That's really been our focus, is find a number of instances of use cases, validate those use cases, and now actually put teams behind each one of those and say, that's a whole business line, that's a whole business line, that's a whole business line, and go after it really, really quickly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Benefit of experience from having done this, guys, and been in so many startups and seeing what works and what doesn't. It's awesome to be in that position. In terms of those experiences, right? What would you guys say each of you would be kind of top lessons learned from your past entrepreneurial ventures that have enabled you to think about Strike in the way that you are thinking about this, in the way that you're executing on it?
My top one, which is really relevant now because so many people are investors and customers and that are trying to pull us in all sorts of directions and go and do lots of different things that we could do. So my top one is do one thing and do it really, really well. So we're focusing on one platform that's being used for a couple of different things, but it's essentially the same thing. And it's just really, really effective, simple, portable payments, person-to-person payments, and just do that one thing and not get spread out too thin.
And it's that constant struggle just to keep funneling those things down and just keep those blinders on. When you got something good, you got to just keep pursuing it, right? What about you, Charles?
Yeah, so one of the reasons why we're able to move at the speed that we're moving is actually not just our experience, but actually our experience with other people. So almost everybody on the team so far has actually worked with either Oli and I, or Oli or I, essentially, at some stage in the past on another venture. Not all of them successful, by the way, not with people who have worked with us in the past and understand that we care about people. We're really passionate about driving product. We're really passionate about going to market and rewarding people. And so we've actually had a great team of people around us that have reinvested their commitment in us, right? Saying, we trust you guys to actually deliver for us. And they have made all the difference. They've allowed us to move really quickly. There's nothing like being able to bring a group of people in that you gel with, you can work with, how to actually negotiate the really difficult times. And it's really difficult. It looks all nice and cool and swimming on the outside, but inside it's hard work, and that's the other learning that I've had from lots of years of experience of doing this, is that you need a huge amount of resilience Yeah, you need to be resilient to all the no's. You need to be resilient to all of the failures, and you need to be resilient to the challenges of like the fact that we're doing this. It's 10 p.m. right, and we probably have another few hours of work to do before we start tomorrow,
Yeah.
where we do it all over again. And it's not for the faint-hearted. Yeah.
I know. It's only 7 hours till 5 a.m.
Do you know what?
Exactly.
What you were saying there, Charles, that's like, it's one of the things that I was most not surprised at. Obviously, having known both of you over a few years now, but really surprised in a positive way to see the amount of people that have kind of come back to work on strike and to be involved in it that you all would have been involved with in the past. Like, it says a lot, obviously, about the work that you guys do and the relationships that you have there. And it's very impressive to see. And again, but not like that at the stage that you're at. It's people that you've been in the trenches with before. They know what to expect. Nobody's going to be surprised at the challenges and how difficult it's going to be. But it's people that can rely on each other, haven't had that experience before. And it's hugely, like it says, it's a statement to both of you that, the number of people, because obviously I know some of the ins and outs of it, but that have come back to kind of get involved again is great to see.
Yeah, we're delighted, and it's amazing. It's a big factor in how we've been able to move so quickly, because we're able to. So hiring normally takes a long time. We were able to bring in there's 13 people now involved in strike, 6 full time and the rest kind of part time. And normally it would take a long time to build up a team like that. We've done that. How many months is it? Not that long at all, and they're all fantastic. Yeah, and so we're delighted.
Yeah, and our chief growth officer, our most recent hire, we haven't worked with in the past, but interestingly, we had actually reached out to her in her role at Just Eat because we see them as a real channel for us. That is our sweet spot for customers, and we had a really great interaction in that process. And then, she was looking at another role, and it made sense to her even after that short interaction with us and our interaction with her. So even in that way, Adele is kind of not even entirely new to the team, right? So she's had some experience of working with Oli and I before she came in the door. And so she's here with us. This is her week 3. And it's, and I hope that we're delivering on the autonomy and accountability and the freedom that we said that we would give her in order to grow this business.
Yeah, it's a big hire. When I saw that, and immediately, that Just Eat history just made so much sense, that it's not Just Eat. It's Uber Eats, it's all the other players out there in the market where she has a pretty good idea around the business model, right? So there's a lot there.
That's what I was saying earlier about our business model. Our go-to-market business model is very much focused on that sort of, it's a B2B style go-to-market for a B2C style product from an end user point of view. So we have this, we get the best of both worlds. We get to build a great consumer-focused product, but actually bring it to market like you would a B2B product. So it really changes the acceleration for us. We take chunks of thousands at a time rather than one at a time, but we still deliver a product to one person at a time. So it's great from a product development point of view and from a business development point of view.
For the larger groups as well, Pete, there's zero integration effort required. We don't need to integrate to, their ePOS or into their app or anything like that. We can sit alongside, so we can deploy extremely quickly. And in fact, their employees don't even need an app. So we've managed to do this with no app requirement at all and no integration effort. So that's helping us run quite quickly.
Yeah, I bet. I kind of, when I thought about this, I just imagined you guys turning up into one of the big food delivery franchises with a box of devices and handing them out like you're handing out bagels in the morning to employees, right? And saying, just go, eat, right?
Yeah, that's actually exactly what we do. Yeah,
okay.
that is a really good description of the deployment process.
And usually we get some free food back as well, because they're usually food places.
Yeah, and actually that it's that process that we've protected. So when what we understood was, it's not the payment that's important. It's the distribution model and the go-to-market model and the ability to scale exactly that. That was the thing to protect. And that's actually what we protected from a patenting point of view. So really different to what you'd imagine we'd actually focus on. Yeah. But the differentiator is scale, go-to-market scale. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
After
yeah.
that, it's easy.
Oh yeah. And what I'm bubbling over with excitement here, guys, is that, when you think about Stripe, one letter difference, obviously, to strike. I'm not going to try to read into that or ask you guys about that, but they went to market in 2011 with an incredibly simple product, 8 lines of code, and said, we're going to get this into users' hands very quickly, right? Now, we know where they've gone from being a very simple first product to touching so many different parts of the life cycle of small business and medium-sized business, and now into bigger business and embedded finance. And there's all these different buzzwords we can throw at that. Where could this all go for you guys?
Look, our ambition's very big, obviously. I mean, on Stripe, by the way, we couldn't have gotten up and running as quickly as we did without Stripe. So they've done us a huge favor. But our ambition is huge. We've got $3 billion opportunities on the table with the products that we have now in place. Single platform. So we're still kind of doing one thing, but there's 3 separate $1 billion opportunities there. We do think we can grow it internationally. And you know how many months we've been going. We launch tomorrow in Florida. We launch on Friday in New York, and then we're launching in London in a couple of weeks' time. And these are actually with customers. So we're actually, live customers.
Jesus, you guys move fast.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. I mean, we have to run. What we're doing is very timely. I think that's why it was so easy for us to raise the angel funding, because it wasn't because they thought that we were so phenomenal founders. I mean, obviously we got some experience and pedigree, but the timeliness of the solution is off the charts, and no one else seemed to be addressing it. So we just came with the right idea, the right product, actually working product that Charles built like himself. Within a month or two, a working product at absolutely the right time. So we have to run quickly. Now that we have the patent protection, we have to get out and get proper traction, during that period where we're protected.
Gotcha.
While the name is an entirely a coincidence, I'm very pleased that we might be even remotely considered to be halfway as good as Stripe. One of the great things about Stripe was exactly that. They focused on a simple product, but for a known customer. So for Stripe, they were the first payment company that actually understood that the developer experience was the most important way to get success. And what we've understood is that the actual tipped worker is the most important customer for us. If we can solve their problems really simply, then of course that leads to all the other relationships to do with all the gig economy, with all the restaurants, with all the hotels and everything else. But we start with one person's problem and actually solve that really simply and do it well. And then all the other things are laid out in front of us. And the other thing that Stripe did really well is that the founders built the product on day one. So they know it intimately. They care about it. They're out there every day thinking about it. And then beyond that, obviously, they've now built a gigantic and fantastic machine around them, but with that same concept of the developer experience. And for us, it's about the tipped worker experience. How does that work? What's great for them? Transparency, honesty, availability of funds. This is a really important part of these people's income, and we need to respect that and deliver on that.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's massive. It's massive, guys. Oh, and I think we're at the part of the podcast where you like to ask your favorite question, yeah?
Yeah, I know. I don't know how Ollie's going to top his story from earlier, so I don't know whether he wants to just chop that bit out and put it at the end. It's something we don't know about.
Well, it's like
maybe you have another something, Ollie.
If it's on your LinkedIn profile, then it's people know about.
People might know
right?
about it. Yeah. Okay. So in that vein, guys, one each, I suppose. What's something people would not expect to know about you? Ollie has to think now. Charles, do you want to have a go?
This is all my own hair.
You look like what's his name? Tommy Carcetti.
Is that a compliment?
Yeah. No, from The Wire. What's his name? And he's Aiden. What's his name? Irishman. He's in the latest cool. Fontaine's DC video, A Hero's Death. He was in Game of Thrones. I forget his second name. It's Aiden something.
Gillen, I think.
Aiden Gillen. That's right. Thank you.
I have a 13-year-old daughter, and I've never seen either Frozen or Frozen 2. And I consider that to be one of the great achievements of my life.
That is an achievement, yeah.
Wow. That, I think I'm just going to have to let it go. Anywho,
Thought of something else.
My first friend was an orangutan. I was born in Borneo in Malaysia, and we lived in a place called Sandakan, which is kind of the on the east coast there, and it's kind of jungle near, and actually there are orangutans living there essentially around us. So there's pictures of us, me toddling, waddling around with orangutans.
I was actually going to ask you that. I heard that on the RTE business podcast that you were on, Oli, and I heard you say Borneo, and I vaguely remember that, but I'm like, I was going to ask you that exact question. So that's pretty cool. I would like to say that my first friend as a child was an orangutan as well, but that would be an imaginary orangutan. So that's awesome. Okay. Well, we're a pretty good company. We've got a guy with a 13-year-old daughter who's never seen Frozen. And we've got a dude born in Borneo whose first best friend was an orangutan. We've never had either one of those on the show. Awesome. And what's the best way for people to learn more about Strike and get in touch with you guys?
Well, they can go to our website, strikepay.co, go on the live chat, read about us there, and sign up, and we'll keep them posted on what we're doing. They can express their interest in any sort of different environment that they're in, that we can provide something that they can use to accept tips or donations. In the last couple of weeks, we're getting a lot of buskers. I think it might be because it's just that time of year, the weather's starting to improve. Buskers haven't been out in a year, and they're just expecting to be able to get out on the streets pretty soon. So a lot of them are coming to us asking, can you give me something so that people can just tap to donate on the street? So, with buskers, bartenders, delivery people, all sorts of people coming through the website. So just say who you are, what it is that you do, and we will provide you something so that people will be able instantly, when they're walking along, just tap and give you some money.
Awesome. We know one friend who would really enjoy that, having access to Strike as a former busker, be Niall Dennehy from Aid Tech, who was with us way back in episode 11. So he'd love that. And also one of his investors, Jason Calacanis, I heard a story about him the other night. He's an angel investor in the US. He said he tried to tip a flight attendant when he was 15 on his first flight. And basically the flight attendant threw his money back at him. But he's like, I tip everybody, what do you want to do? Anywho, listen, guys, it's been brilliant having you on the show.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. Like I said, just see so much opportunity ahead of you guys. And obviously we'll be watching closely.
Thanks very much, Pete. It was really nice.
Thank you.
On the show. And thanks, Owen.
Yeah.
Good to see you again.
See you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
That does it for this week, folks. Thanks to Oli and Charles for opening up their minds to help us figure out why they do what they do. Links are on our website at moneyneversleeps.ie, so check us out online and subscribe to our Money Never Sleeps newsletter as well. Also, thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for mixing and editing this episode. Conan is an excellent media man to get in touch with when you're thinking about launching your own podcast. As for me, I'm the founding partner at Norio Ventures, and I'm an early-stage startup advisor and investor focused on fintech and digital assets. If you'd like to talk to me about your business, drop me a voicemail on moneyneversleeps.ie. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!